Welcome to Happy Hour Holidaze with your host, Manny Febre, and my co-host, Sean Fresh over here with the White Claws. What are we going to hear? Yeah. And then we got director, film, producer of one of 6 films on Amazon Prime, Steve Hollingshead. How we doing, Steve?
Well, I'm so glad you said it right this time, because you've been going back and forth between you and Sean, making fun of my name. I get shithead, butthead, dickhead, all these other different things. And, for once I got a little respect. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, and we're really happy to have you here. I mean, a person that has that many films on Amazon Prime, and one that's coming up that we really are interested in because we're born and raised here in Tampa is Ybor City Underworld, A History. Tell us a little bit about the development and the research that went into that.
It's kind of interesting. I saw something on Facebook that advertised mafia tours in Ybor City. And when I first came to Tampa 13 years ago, I've heard about some of the mafia activities that happened down here. And the first name that popped up was Trafficante, of course. Everybody knows the Trafficantes. They're still here in Tampa, some of the relatives of it. And my son-in-law went to high school with one of her granddaughters, the whole thing. And the deal is that I know it was based on a book that a man named Scott Dietschy wrote. Dietschy, however you pronounce his name. Yeah. I don't know, the damn Germans, and I turned around and I got the book. He wrote a book called
Cigar City Mafia?
Cigar City Mafia. Thank you. I'm having a senior moment. I've only had one coffee cup this morning. You guys get me up too early. Wake up my beauty sleep. Anyhow, I got the book, and he wrote another book about Trafficante, and so he has a new one out right now on Hitman. And the research that went into this book is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Scott, he's on the board of directors of the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. And he has all these visuals, and I got together with him. I pinged him, and I said, look, this looks like it's something that could be a documentary. And me being a filmmaker, you have to think visual. And writing it in the book, different story. You can write it down. You can visualize it in your mind's eye. But when it comes down to actually putting it on film or video in this particular case, whole different ballgame. Excuse me. That coffee from this morning. Cafe Bustelo, love it. Yeah, I know.
And Steve, tell us a little bit about the background on that family. Was it Trafficante? Because, I'm not familiar, and I'm a Tampa native, and I actually was very intrigued to know a little bit about them.
Well, it's not just the Trafficantes. Yeah. You have to understand there were various different mob figures in Ybor City. I mean, first of all, you had Ignazio Antonori, who was a big drug runner. And then after that, you had Charlie Wall, who was known as the Dean of the Underworld. They called him the White Shadow because he always dressed in white. He's very tall. He's over 6 foot, and he always wore a top hat. And, he was one of the things. And then when you talk about the mafia basically is the Italians. So you have Italians, you have Spanish, you have German, you have French even. And the French influence is obvious in Ybor City because it looks like the district in the French district, the French Quarter in New Orleans.
Wow.
And that's why Ybor City looks like that, because it was a huge, great influence. And when the French came from New Orleans over to Ybor City because of cigar factories and everything like that, they wanted their buildings to reflect that. And that's why Ybor City looks the way it does today. Another thing that we find out is, too, that later on with the conflicts between all the different factions of members of organized crime, you find out that there was a lot of murders that happened. And between about 1935 and 1930 to 1945, there were so many murders on the streets, it was called the Era of Blood.
So it was unregistered murders that nobody ever even knew about.
Oh, they knew about it.
Oh, they knew
it's
about
documented.
It.
Everything in this film and everything in Scott's book is documented. That's what made it an easy documentary, because it's all public knowledge and it's all documented. You go and you see, I talk about making a film about Ybor City. Everybody always brings up
Cubans, cigars.
No, the movie Live by Night.
Live by Night.
Oh, I don't even know that one.
Live by Night. Excuse me, Live by Night with Ben Affleck. I think it's Ben Affleck's, and it's a movie about probably in the 1920s, 1930s, about how the mob moved down into Ybor City And it's all fiction, of course. Everybody says, "Oh, that really happened." No, it's fiction. But everybody sees that movie and they turn around and they reference Ybor City with that because that's where it allegedly took place.
So you last time we spoke, were talking about underground tunnels in Ybor City and how you had the privilege of going to someone's house to be shown one of these tunnel entrances or something like that. Is that true?
That's a whole different perspective of the film, and what I want to do is let's talk about all the different things that I see in the film.
Okay.
One thing, and then I'm going to get to that and answer your question indirectly. Excuse me. So what happened is that you have all these different things in the film. You have illegal gambling. You have prostitution. You have, of course, during the Volstead Act, prohibition, you have illegal liquor, and which were smuggled by some of those tunnels, they think, which I'm going to get back to. And you also have murder for hire. You have arson for hire. You have all these things happen, and especially political corruption that was just off the wall. And this is all addressed in the film. So you talk about all these different secret passages and stuff. I have Drew Newman from J.C. Newman Cigar Company showed me, a trapdoor that they found when they were renovating the building. And it's a beautiful building if you ever get a chance to go inside there and see their little museum they have. Yeah. There's a trapdoor. What happened was, the story is that the mob would come over and start robbing cigar factories. So what happened was that you could tell that they hit one cigar factory, then they're going to hit the other cigar factory, and they paid everybody in cash because they didn't have checks or credit cards back in those days.
No paper trail either.
No, so you have all these envelopes where you're paying all your workers in cash. As a result of the mob comes around and they start hitting all the cigar factories, and you could tell they're going to be next because they hit the one down the road not too damn long ago.
Yeah, so it's your turn next.
So what happened was that he developed an escape route where you lift up a hatch in one room, you go down there and you close the hatch, and it's hard to see, and you go down the stairway and there's an escape tunnel, and you sit down and you waited until you think the mob member left, and then you saved your company payroll that day.
Felt like the World War II with the Germans and the Jews, man. I mean, they literally had to hide underneath houses for long periods of time.
Right, like Anne Frank.
Yeah, Anne Frank.
Anne Frank. And so with that, and then as you mentioned, Sean, that there is a house that I found doing some research that has these tunnels in them, and they're always in the news media locally about how we're finding all these tunnels and everything down all over Ybor City and some of the buildings, and USF is conducting a big study on that. Those are pretty much being found to be stormwater conveyance tunnels.
Okay.
But the story is that they would bring in illegal immigrants and they would ship them up the North Coast and everything. Because of the size of those tunnels, I really don't think that they would be used for human transport. So, but there is a house, and I'm not going to say where they is out of respect for the owner because they really don't want it known.
Yeah.
That overlooks the Hillsborough River, and it's got a tower on it, so you can see everything coming up the river. Wow. These boats, whether it's the prohibition law or whether it's a transport of liquor or whatever the case. But there's 3 tunnels in the bottom of the house.
Still usable, right?
They were usable, not now.
Not now.
They're sealed off.
They're sealed off. Gotcha.
Yeah, and they're afraid to open up because you don't know what they might find. But one goes to Ybor City, one goes towards the river, and another one goes the opposite direction. Wow. And I was given access to it. The woman who her and her husband owned the house, very lovely people, gave me full access to it. Told me the stories of what they found, and they found that the house was built about 1925. And it's documented on, it had a waterfalls going in because the guy who built Sulphur Springs, the big amusement park they used to have down there.
Sulphur Springs, man. That used to be one of the nicest places to live, too.
And it got wiped out by a hurricane.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is when that happened, that the people who were living at that house at a time were, the guy was like the deputy coroner of the county, and they had a body wash up near the shore. And they found out that apparently he was shot in the head. He was a mob member, and they dumped him. and during the body dumping, thinking it was going to wash out to the sea, and
Yeah.
instead the hurricane came and washed him up to the shore.
Oh, Jesus.
And he had, he had a gunshot wound, so he was obvious, and they identified him as being a mob member. But this house, in the bottom of the house, it has a circular area that they think was used as a cockfighting pit.
No shit.
And has these little chairs embedded into it and everything like that. And they had a wall on the side that turned around and looked out so you could see what it was. So it was kind of like sealed in, because that's where the money is, and these little pit things to put money into it or whatever the case may be. It was also allegedly a house of prostitution. Excuse me. And of course, me, I enjoyed that because I have a pornographic mind.
Who doesn't have these
Yeah, really.
days?
And they ask us why we drink, right? Yeah.
That's why.
So at any rate, it was a brothel. It was allegedly for cockfighting, and it was said to be a big mob place. And doing some of the and it also has 2 hidden safes in the wall, and I found and she showed me one of them. It's in the film. So these tunnels, allegedly, one going down the river. One of the neighbors said that when I was a kid, I went down to one of those tunnels, and I went for about half an hour. And I couldn't find the end of it, and I got scared and came back out.
Holy shit.
And so, and you look over there and you look down the Hillsborough River, it's just like a strategic place where you can see everything coming up the river, and it's fantastic.
Wow.
So doing the research, I found that the house was built in 1925, and I'm going through public records. Excuse me, doing a lot of research and everything. And in these public records, I found an interesting tidbit where I got the name of a man who first occupied the house, to my knowledge, about 1927. I have a fantastic researcher up in my hometown in Pennsylvania, Everett, Pennsylvania, where her name is Carol, and she does a lot of genealogical research, and I put her on this, and she's like a pit bull on a mission. She digs her teeth into it, and she just doesn't let go till she gets. She found that the guy was in Cuba. He was from New Jersey.
Okay.
New Jersey now, goes to Cuba, can't get the export date, but we found his import records where he came up through I think the Keys or Miami, and then 2 years later, a bookkeeper from New Jersey 2 years later living in that house. What does that say to you? 3 initials, M-O-B.
What's M-O-B?
Mob.
Oh, mob.
Another reason we drink is because of Sean.
Well, that's
As
on
long
a
as
daily
he's buying,
basis.
I'm good with that. Which he has done on occasion. Yeah. So, anyhow, that house was one of the interesting things about the tunnels and all that. So let's go back about the structure of the film. Going with the structure of the film, we're talking about some of the things that happen in Ybor City. We talk about Charlie Walls, we talk about how he used to walk down the street and throw gold coins out there to the kids and poor, helping some people, like the mob usually does.
Yeah.
They turn around and help the community. You don't have to worry about stuff happening in your community because if you do, the mob's going to fuck you up,
Yeah.
right? So that's it. So at any rate, we talk about the murder house. Are you familiar with the murder house?
No.
The murder house on, I think it was 5th Avenue. In about 1933, I think it was, don't quote me on that date, a young man named Vincent Licata was smoking dope.
Yeah,
He was a doper.
Yeah, it was a
All right. And he was out there riding the honeymoon.
Was he selling it too?
I don't know if he was selling it, but he was smoking it with, he was running the honeymoon wagon at night and turning around. And apparently he turned around and he murdered everybody in his house.
What the fuck?
Family?
Including the dog.
Oh my god.
That's what pisses me off when you fuck up the dog. You know what I mean?
Dog doesn't know any better.
Dog, Anyhow, dog is
Yeah,
got.
but he was smoking weed. He's not going to kill people because
Yeah, I
he
know,
was smoking
but,
weed.
but the whole thing. Okay, that's the premise of the story. Okay, he was smoking weed, and as a result of that, some politico wanted to turn around and make an anti-marijuana thing. Thus came out the movie Reefer Madness. And a lot of people don't know about that. And it's an old movie, and it was a political ploy to outlaw marijuana, basically. The true story of what we think happened was, and this is a story that was given to me by Kurt Sleester, who is the owner of the house, is that the man who owned the house was a barber, and he was living beyond his means. He had a horse and buggy, and he's You don't own a horse and buggy making that kind of money back in that day.
That's
you know,
pretty
being a
common,
barber.
right? In society, everybody lives beyond their means.
Right,
man.
but what it comes down to now is that they think he was bootlegging.
Oh.
And because he was bootlegging, you've got Traficantes on one side, you've got Charlie Wells on the other side, and they're battling against each other, and this guy's bootlegging. They think the mob came in and did a hit. And they always leave one person alive to tell the story of what happened.
And they framed him.
He went to the mental institution. He went to the booby hatch. He was living in a rubber room for the rest of his life there.
Whenever I think of bootlegging, I think of Smokey and the Bandit with Burt Reynolds and
Squeal like a pig. I know. Yeah, I just saw that movie. Yeah. No, that was Deliverance. I'm thinking about. Yeah, Deliverance. Yeah.
He was like, why did he want so much beer? Because he's thirsty, dummy.
Yeah, really. Yeah, really. So anyhow, that's what. And when Kurt was renovating the house, he found some pulleys up on the ceiling and everything like, and he found some liquor bottles. That period. So obviously, this guy was bootlegging, and the mob came in and they took out the entire family, and they left one person alive to tell the story of what happened.
Is that pretty common that they always leave one person?
Always leave one person alive to tell what the story. Otherwise, the story's not going to get out the way it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, at any rate, the premise of that story is that we talk about that. We talk about the La Bolita. Now, you two are Cubans. You know what bolita is, right? No. Okay, I'll explain it.
Wait, abuelita or what is it?
Bolita.
Bolita.
Yeah, little balls.
Little ball, yeah.
Little balls. There's 100 little balls that it came over with a man named Suarez from Cuba around the late 1880s. And what happened is it's a lottery system. And they would take all these 100 balls that had numbers on them, and they would put them in a bag, and they would shake it up and do what they call the bolita throw. And they would throw it, and they would turn around and throw it again and mix the balls up and shake it and throw it and take it to the bolita man. He'd cut the bottom of it out. He'd pull out the winning number. You had kids as young as 6 years old running around selling bolita tickets on the streets of Ybor City and all around the area. Okay. And then it generated so much money that the mob got involved with it and started freezing the ball. The man feels the ball is frozen, he pulls it out. And then after you freeze the ball, there's another one where they would take cross sections of a ball. They would put lead in the middle of the little ball so it would drop down the bottom. When I was doing the research on this, I also found that there was a full bolita set at the University of South Florida. And I shot that from my cover shots. And they actually had one that had a cross section of it with one of the balls that were filled with lead.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool. And other ways they would do it that couldn't corrupt it is that they would get it from the radio broadcast from Havana, and picking the winning bolita number 2. So that really, really generated a lot of number and a lot of money, and to the point where people were killing each other over it.
When we get back, we're going to talk more about this story. I'm so intrigued. I'm really excited. Once again, if you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon Prime. Ybor City, Underworld, A History. When we get back, we'll continue the story. And we're back with Happy Hour Holidaze, and we have an extremely awesome story. If you're a Tampa native, Steve Hollingshead with Ybor City Underworld, A History. This goes back to the 1930s, 1920s about the secret mafia of Ybor City. Steve, you were telling us about the bolitas, where people were literally being able to come to United States using these, it's almost like a lottery system.
It was a rigged lottery system, right?
Well, most of the time it was rigged. I want to ask you both a question. Can you tell me the difference between organized crime and the government?
Neither.
They're both the same.
No, one of them's organized.
I like that.
Yeah. And so, we're picking up from Bolita, and later on with the Bolita, they ended up killing each other over these things. And like I said, all this is documented, and it's public knowledge. And that's where Scott did he's up there talking to FBI agents and everything that were involved in all these investigating organized crime. Now, the film just doesn't focus during the 1930s, 40s. It goes up to present day.
Yeah, for sure.
Excuse me. God, that coffee must have been damn good. Tasting it for the third time.
And you said the mob got involved with it. Was it the real part of the real lottery system, or are they falsifying the bolita method?
It was illegal.
Oh, it was illegal.
So what is this lottery system? Because I don't think we have the premise of it yet.
It's the same thing. As you go out and you buy on the streets, people walk up here, and if you go to Cuba, you're
Do
going
you
to
win
find
money?
people on the
Do you
street.
win money? Is
Yeah,
that
you
what
win
it is?
money.
Okay, so
you win
that's
money.
what it is.
So you come around and kids are on the street selling bolita tickets, or you walk over to a bolita vendor and you put down some money and you get your tickets.
So
and
it
pick
all
your
goes
number.
into one big pot. Whoever wins gets all that
Boom.
money.
Yeah.
Okay.
But nobody
Okay.
ever wanted to recognize that they won it, or else everybody and their mother would be hands out, give me money.
And so to talk about the bolita, I got Dr. Brett Massey from the History Center, the Tampa History Center down on Water Street to discuss it. And he came up with a good thing that you would see some of the more or less prominent families, some of the black families, mostly in Tampa, who were, of course, the racial prejudice back in those days, was very high. And then instead of having bread this week, we're going to take the money and put it on bolita.
Wow.
And they would do it that way, and that was revealed to me. And Brad was very knowledgeable on that, and I thank him for that. At any rate, we have it documented where people, a grocer would come in running bolita, and people would come into his house and held his wife hostage until he came home, and then they shot him right away because he was making too much money competing in bolita. So with that moving on, so we have bolita, and then we have the all the murders that happened. And it was not just because of bolita, because other factions going against each other, a lot of different things. Starting with Nacho Antonori, I had mentioned him earlier, one of the first mob members of Tampa. Tampa was very popular for all this crime because of the ports. You can bring in illegal liquor, illegal drugs, you can bring in prostitutes, so you can do human trafficking and everything like that by bringing them in the ports of Tampa. Okay, which makes sense, yeah? So then, with that, you have all the drugs running. And Ignacio Antonori would take drugs and run it up the entire East Coast. And he got into a mix with some, I believe, Colombians from, I think it was Chicago. And they didn't like the quality, or they didn't like the quantity of drugs that were being sent, and he refused to do something about it. So he's sitting in a nice little bar one day with a young lady, and guy walked up behind him and blew his head off with a shotgun.
Wow.
These guys were brutal, dude. I'm
Ruthless, man. There are no worries, man.
they are brutal as hell. And the method of people going around and taking each other out was they would be sitting at a red light, or they were sitting there reading a newspaper or something, and they'd drive up beside you, a window come down, boom,
Boom.
shotgun. Never once have you ever seen a Tommy gun in Ybor, a 45 caliber Thompson machine gun.
Yeah.
Okay, that was just strictly,
Hollywood.
well, not necessarily Hollywood, up in Chicago and that type of stuff during the Ring 20s, Al Capone, and all that type of stuff, okay? But down here, it was, all the murders happened were either by shotgun or by 38 caliber pistol.
You want to make sure you were dead.
Oh, headshot.
Headshot with a shotgun. Your head's blown off.
You're done. You're done. That's it. One gentleman making this film was great. I'm telling you right now. I'm gonna like defer on the making of the film. That one gentleman, I had to have a 1930s car, and I found one at a car show. It was up in Wiregrass, and the guy named Sam Peroni was great, and he's Italian. And
Peroni.
and I asked him, hey, this is what I'm doing. I need a car. Would you be doing? Fuck yeah! And he loved it,
Yeah.
And he's Italian.
Yeah.
That's like, it kind of reminds me of the movie Dracula Dead and Loving It. Have you ever seen that Mel Brooks film?
No, I haven't.
It's like I think it was Richard Lewis. He's like, and Mel Brooks is.
I love Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Spaceballs.
Well, have you seen History of the World Part 2?
No.
Part 2's on
know,
Hulu. I haven't seen it because I don't have Hulu. Yeah. But anyhow, it's like, she's dead. She's dead. She's undead. She's undead. She's Nosferatu. She's Italian.
Mel Brooks, man. He had the great, Blazing Saddles.
Oh, my God.
Spaceball. All those movies were great. Yeah. When my dad introduced me to Blazing Saddles and Spaceballs, I think I would watch it on repeat.
I didn't like Spaceballs, but I'll tell you what. The one I loved in Blazing Saddles was kind of the joke we had was that we're trying to take over the town. What are we going to do? We're going to bring up a number 6. You're going to whoop up a number 6? What's that? A number 6. That's why we go riding through the town. A whopping and a whooping. And we kill every male child and every man in the town. What about the women? Did we kill the women? No, we raped the shit out of them at the number 6 dance that night. What kind of a demented mind would come up with that shit? You know
Brooks.
what I mean? Mel Brooks.
You know what? I don't think you can make that movie today.
Oh,
man.
hell no. You can't even play. I've got a DV copy of it, and so that's preserved.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we get off track.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're going
so
back.
no, we have arson for hire. During the Depression, what happened was a lot of people were losing their houses, and the mob would come in there, and they would take the mob money, and they would buy up these houses from the people that the bank would get repossessed. They would turn around, and you look at some of these houses, they're old stick houses, right?
Yeah. They're for wood frame.
Wood frame, a whole deal. And so what happened was they would take and buy furniture in the house, and they would sell maybe like $2,000 for it and get a receipt for $20,000. Corruption again.
Yeah.
And they turn around, they put it in the house, and they torch the house.
Wow.
And claim the insurance money. So you have murder for hire, you have arson for hire, you have prostitution, you have illegal gambling, you have illegal liquor.
You had murder for hire as well.
Yeah, I would take hitmen and go out there, and they'd blow away competition for either Bolita or for instance, you got one guy who was well known in the political world, who turns around and he paid off all the different politicians and all that, and he got what they think was so powerful that the mob put a hit out on him. So one night a man comes out there while he's sitting in a car with his wife and daughter, and I document where it happened on my film, and he turns around and a man comes out there and he's got a tall man wearing a overcoat and a typical fedora that they wore back then, hiding his face at nighttime, and he walked up and boom, shot the guy. And then he tries to turn around and hide his daughter, shield her from being hit, and he jumps out of the car finally, and he takes 6 more shots, and that was a .38 caliber pistol. So they think he had a list of all the politicians he paid off that they found later on.
Wow.
Any notable politicians that he paid off?
No, not that I'm going to talk about.
Well, if it's history, it's history.
Yeah,
right?
I know. No. I mean, not notable. I mean, only to the Tampa people, not
to
politicians.
Tampa.
Yeah, and I mean, you've had like the sheriff was involved, the mayor was involved in all this political corruption too, and then you had a cop named Richard Cloud who was investigating all this other kind of stuff, and he was getting a little bit too close. And they turned around and they made an accusation that they beat the shit out of one guy out in the parking lot, and they shouldn't have done it. And they turned around and fired him. But he later on went on with the federal investigators, continued it. And one day he gets a knock on the door, and he opens the door, and boom, boom.
I figured.
Yeah, bye. And the rule is that you don't kill the cops. You don't mess with the cops. But that was an exception to the rule that it happened.
Because he wasn't a part of the police force anymore, right?
Well, he was kind of like working with the feds,
He wasn't bought.
Yeah. And they always say snitches get stitches.
Snitches get stitches before they get
238
blown
caliber
away.
bullets, yeah. So anyhow, developing that more, I mean, we talk about all these things, and I develop it into the point where it gets a little bit more modern. Now, have you ever seen the movie Donnie Brasco?
Yes. With Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp and was it Al Pacino? Yeah,
Al Pacino, yeah.
Right. So with
That's a great movie.
that
by
is a
the
good
way.
movie, and everyone says it happened in Miami. It happened in Hollywood.
Hollywood.
I'm
Florida?
sorry. No, not Hollywood. Oh Christ! Now I'm having a
I thought it was like based out of New York.
no. It happened in Holiday
Holiday.
out there by Tarpon Springs.
Holiday,
Oh, shoot.
Florida.
Yeah,
Whoa.
Holiday, Florida, and I found the place where it happened, and believe it or not, the place is a church now. So what happened was that Donnie Brasco. God, man, a cup of coffee.
Senior moment.
You guys got me up too fucking early. So at any rate, Donnie Brasco got in. The idea was try to turn around and frame Trafficante and get evidence on him. And, because he infiltrated the mob, he turned around and said, look, I got this great place right now. We can buy it for a song. We can turn around and we can make it a gambling casino and bring in these women, and we can do all this great stuff. Well, it turned out that the FBI wired every room, and they even got they had a casino night, and when the casino night happened, they turned around and busted the place. They even had a $200 payoff from the local chief of police. out.
Which is that a lot back then? 200.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's a small bribe. And then you turn around and you talk about that today's money, and it could be $2,000. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
I'm not an accountant, so I don't know. But anyhow, what it comes down to is that they've got all this stuff, and they ended up seizing all these guns, all these illegal gambling devices like slot machines, and they got all these different stolen jewelry and all that. And so I work with that, and then I also develop it into the point where we have a lot of the more modern mobsters had all these different places where they're doing illegal gambling. They're selling stolen merchandise and all that. And I've got these places that I found all along Tampa here that I found it and documented it also.
Most of it in Ybor City, Steve?
No, it's on the outskirts of Tampa, all around. It sounds found one in particular. I think it was on Nebraska Avenue.
No surprise.
Yeah, really. And we'll be down there later on, Sean. And the places are abandoned now. At least one of them. Another one is a taco stand now. It's a taco store that I found. That
Any historical buildings that we may know that are landmarks of Tampa, Florida, or outskirts?
Down in Ybor City, there is one called, it's an arched building. It has
It's not the Italian club, is it?
No, the Italian club. Well, the Columbia was a big hangout for Trafficante.
Columbia was still around during that time?
Oh, yeah. Columbia.
1922, right?
No, we're talking more like in the 1950s and 60s now.
Columbia restaurant? The same exact spot?
The same exact lawn. That was where Trafficante hang out, and then he had lunch there all the time or dinner there.
He must have liked that 1905 salad, because I know I do.
Well, I'll tell you what. What's really funny is a waiter came up one time and spilled coffee on him, and Trafficante said, "What do you got against me, man?" And the guy was scared and ran out the door and never came back. So. There's another point I wanted to talk on about Trafficante. He got involved with Lucky Luciano. Let me go back a little
Lucky
bit.
Luciano's from New York, isn't
Yeah,
he?
Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky. Okay, the mob from New York City.
Yeah.
But let me go back a little bit. Okay, first you had Charlie Walls. And you had Charlie Walls and Trafficante Sr. came in. Now, there's Trafficante Sr. and Trafficante Jr. Trafficante Sr., basically went in competition with Charlie Wall, and he said, "Look, I will turn around." Charlie Wall had an establishment called the El Dorado, and the El Dorado was, where he was doing all the bolita and illegal gambling and everything, all that kind of stuff he was involved with. And so with that, he said, "Look, I'll buy you out, but you don't give me any more competition. As long as I'm alive, you're safe. You don't have to worry about it. All right." And then later on, a man named Keyhofer, who was running, I guess he was looking to run for president or whatever the case may be, a Politico up in New York, decided he's going to crack down on organized crime, kind of like Bobby Kennedy did, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened was he had all these hearings, and hearings came to Tampa. Charlie Wallace gets subpoenaed. Trafficante Sr. gets subpoenaed. Trafficante Sr. says, "I ain't going." Charlie Wallace goes up there and spills his guts about all the organized crime that's happening in Tampa. So then, with the Keyhofer hearings, that was over, and Charlie Wall walks out a free man. He doesn't get any kind of prosecution whatsoever.
What time period does this see?
This is probably, I think, in the 1950s.
1950s.
I think.
Okay.
50s, 60s.
Okay.
And then you're making me think.
I'm just doing it for the audience because, I'm intrigued, and, I love the history.
Watch the film. Yeah.
Watch the film, yeah.
So anyhow, what happened was that after Trafficante Sr. dies, Charlie wife's Wall's coming back from visiting his sister in Orlando, and she finds him laying down on the floor. He has 9 stab wounds on his face and the neck, and he's smacked in the back of the head with what they think was a blackjack because he found these little BBs all over the floor. So he's done. Trafficante's dead. Senior. Trafficante Jr. is now the guy who is in charge of the Mafia, Italian, in Tampa. So what happened is Trafficante Jr. was actually groomed by his father. He was sent to Colombia, he was sent to Spain, he was sent to Italy, he was sent all over Europe to learn the trades of that. And he spoke fluent Spanish as a result of that. That gave him an in whenever the mob got involved in Havana. So when the mob got involved in Havana, they're doing great, and they've got all these hotels, they've got all these different casinos and everything that they've got running. Then all of a sudden, the revolution comes, Fidel Castro. Now Batista, who was
the president beforehand,
and he was a tyrant. He was a tyrant, and he turned around and they said, "Well, if we can bribe Batista,
not that Fidel's any better."
Yeah, well,
he's dead.
Yeah, but the idea is that because they could easily bribe Batista, they figured they could easily bribe Fidel Castro also. And what people don't know is that the mob was sending guns and money and ammunition and all these other things to the Sierra Madre Mountains over in Cuba to be able with the rebels. I say Sierra Madre. Is that a movie? Yeah, I think I got that wrong. Anyhow, I think it's Sierra Mountains, whatever. My wife's from Cuba, so I should know all this shit.
All right.
Yeah. And they ask me, do I drink?
He's got no choice, man.
Yeah, you're
My
right.
wife's Cuban too.
No problema. Hey.
Hey, so when we get back, we're going to continue this great story. I mean, this Ybor City Underworld, a history. Check it out on Amazon Prime. It's a hot ticket. So we'll be back and continuing the story. So we're back to Happy Hour Holidaze, and we're talking about Traficante and Cuba, Steve. So what went next?
So what happened was that whenever the revolution came and Fidel Castro and his group took over, he nationalized everything and pissed a lot of people off, of course.
Yeah, communism.
Mm-hmm. And he nationalized everything, and as a result of that, they started closing all the casinos. Now, everyone thinks that right away he closed all the casinos. No, he tried to let it run for a little while and saw that because there's no tourism now.
Those are pretty much like the new they kind of established Vegas with the showmanship and the shows.
Yeah, because they left Havana to Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas took a little piece of that.
Yeah, it was Bugsy Siegel and his gang.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
was that the Flamingo?
Yeah, the Flamingo or the Riviera. No, the Flamingo.
Yeah.
Anyhow, what happened was that he saw that there was no tourism happening, so they turned around and closed the casinos. And as a result of that, Traficante decided he had so much money invested, he's going to try to stay and see if he can recoup it. And he ended up getting thrown in jail at the Tres Cones prison.
In Cuba.
And Fidel was executing a lot of these people, and they think that Traficante was actually marked for execution. And then all of a sudden he got a visitor by the name Jack Ruby. Does that ring a bell?
No.
Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who shot Lee Harvey Oswald from the man who shot Kennedy, allegedly, right? And
murder for hire, right?
Murder for hire. Anyhow, what happened, Jack Ruby was with Carlos Marcello in New Orleans. And what happened was that, that's another murder for hire story too. What happened was that Carlos Marcello, coffee.
You need that café con leche, papá.
They sent Jack Ruby to go talk to Traficante, and it's documented that they met in Tres Cones prison, and a couple of days later, Traficante is released from Tres Cones prison and sent back to Miami. Some people say that they made a deal where it was monetary, and some people say made a deal that Traficante would spy on the mob for Cuba or whatever the case may be. But there he is. He's back. Now,
there's a movie about that.
Probably.
Yeah.
So anyhow, what happened was that during the Keyhofer hearings that Carlos Marcello was supposed to, he got summons to speak at the Keyhofer hearing, and he turned around, and the night before,
no surprise.
When you shoot in the mouth, that means you're going to squeal, right?
Yeah.
You don't shoot him in the mouth. You take one in the back of the head, and then you take, one
in the front,
5 up, and whatever the case may be. So if they shoot you in the mouth, that means they think you're going to be a snitch. So anyhow, he's gone, and Traficante's back, and they continue the business. And a side note that his brother Henry was running an illegal sporting bet business in the Italian club in Ybor City, and he ended up getting arrested for it and did some time. And Then when Trafficante died, then they had other people vying for his position.
This is Junior, right?
Junior, when Junior died, and that brings us up more modern times. And the question I always get is that, is there still a mafia?
Is there?
In Tampa? Most of the time now there's a few wannabes out there, so I'm told that I think Sean's one of them. And that because of...
That's it. I'm putting a hit on you.
Yeah, well...
Murder for hire.
Don't forget my background. I can...
Yeah, that's right.
I can disappear you faster.
Forces.
Special education. I can disappear you faster than a Clinton.
Well, I'll just be suicided.
You'll be suicided. That's right. Sean died impaled on a beer can. How'd that happen? Yeah.
The email server is still alive.
So at any rate, there are a few wannabes out there, so I'm told. I don't know. But the technology and the money you make in tech these days basically gives you a better basis for for finances rather than, organized crime, that type of stuff. And because of that also, the crackdown on technology with law enforcement and that type of thing too.
What would you say is a fact that the typical Tampanian doesn't know about their city, that maybe it could be anything related to everything you just spoke about, of course, the history, but just one fact that might blow someone's mind about Tampa that they didn't really know about?
There's just so much.
And I'm just asking for
based
one.
on this, and I don't call them Tampanians, I call them tampons.
Because
if what is it? If you come from a certain area and they call you a certain name, and then if you're from Tampa, are you a tampon?
That's what we thought for the longest
Yeah, but
time.
the crazy thing is that so many people, like, when you say you're Tampanian, like you're born and raised here, they're like,
shocked.
They're like, oh my God. I'm like, I know a shit ton of people that are Tampanians. It's the people from, I guess, people out of the state of Florida think it's rare, but it's not really that rare.
No, and I run a few people over. Where are you from? I'm from Tampa.
You're
a rarity,
You're not from Tampa.
No, not me. I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Or as I saw, Pennsyltucky.
Penisvania?
No. I'm from where Einstein says everyone's relative. We go to family reunions to pick up women.
what the fuck?
My family tree's a stump. Those are all jokes. It's great. It's great being old, and I can tell you guys jokes you've never heard before. But these jokes are so old that
Really?
I haven't heard them.
Neither have I. Hey, well, talking about Einstein and those kinds of celebrities, who is the most famous person you've met, Steve?
There are
Hollingsworth.
a number of piss off. Mike Tyson comes to mind.
Ooh, you met Mike Tyson?
Oh yeah, you've seen the picture. I showed it to you.
Oh shit, yeah.
You saw it. You've been to my house. You saw my "I love me" wall.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
One of the best ones I've heard, Steve, is
Lieutenant
no. Everything's all good until you get punched in the face.
Yeah,
that was Mike Tyson, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Mike Tyson.
No, everybody's got a plan.
No, he's got. Yeah, he's like everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. That's it.
I was doing a documentary promotional thing for the Medal of Honor Museum Foundation, where I worked with a lot of members who were recipients of the Medal of Honor. Everybody says, "You won the Medal of Honor." You don't win it. It's not a contest. For sure.
Well, sometimes they're handouts.
You earn it.
You earn it. Believe me, you do. And
the Medal of Honor.
During the Civil War, it was a handout.
I think you're thinking about a different medal.
Which one is it now?
That they give the citizens? Yeah, that's not a Medal of Honor.
Yeah. Well, you're thinking of the Medal of Freedom.
Yeah,
Medal of Freedom.
That we're not.
And when I worked at the White House, I did a Medal of Freedom ceremony one time, and when Ronald Reagan was there, and again, I'm showing my age, and
so you met Ronald Reagan?
Yeah, I have a set of his cufflinks, 2 sets actually.
Oh, actually, I saw them. That's right. Yeah.
How much?
How much?
Like,
bro, his house is...
Very nice. How much?
Very nice. How much for the cufflinks?
Yeah. Dude, his house is like a museum. I swear to God.
My wife calls it my museum.
It is a museum.
You've been talking to my wife again, haven't you? No, but at any rate, back into the question during the Medal of Freedom. I mean, James Cagney was Tennessee Ernie Ford. Dr. Denton Coley, who did one of the first artificial heart transplants or something. And Tennessee Ernie Ford were there, and Ronald Reagan was giving all his Hollywood buddies the Medal of Freedom. In this particular case, the Medal of Honor. All right, the Medal of Honor Museum. It was an event put out by Ross Perot, and I've worked with Ross Perot 3 different times, and he's been very, very generous in working with the special ops community, donating for money. And
for those of you who don't know, Steve was a Green Beret.
The Queen Beret.
Oh, that's what we're
I'm in the Army. And I'm
he
getting
doesn't want to talk about it.
you don't want to talk about that?
No, I really don't want to get into it.
Man, everybody that we get on here that has a military background, they never want to talk about the military.
Well, they say that there are 720 Navy SEALs during the Vietnam War. So far, I've met over 2,000 of them in a bar. Yeah, but at any rate, my background with Army Special Forces turned around, which allotted me to end up working with a lot of these celebrities, because I had people who are connected that I have worked with. And
connected.
When we were shut up. when we were doing this piece with Ross Perot, who was doing a fundraiser for it, I was with John Wayne's granddaughter, who I'm friends with, and Mike Tyson happened to be in the area and came in, and my friend knew Mike, and he brought him in, and I did a one-on-one interview with Mike, and he was doing a boxing exhibition. This was in Dallas, and
timeline?
It was Dallas, Texas.
No, what year?
Yeah, what year?
Like 85 or something like that.
What's that?
90s.
What year was?
That was 2014.
Oh, it was 2014.
Oh, shit,
So
recently.
Yeah, 2014, 2015, I did this, and so. He was very cordial, and he gave us all tickets to his exhibition, but unfortunately we were having the event that night. And the funny part about that event is that I sat at the table with all the descendants of the Roosevelts.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt's big. I'm a big Teddy Roosevelt fan.
I'm not.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is,
Trust buster.
Yeah, well, if you ever go in the old Epic Grill, which is across from the Department of Treasury in Washington, that's where all the Secret Service and people hang out at, and the White House staff after they work and all that other kind of stuff. There's all these heads of dead animals up on the wall when
they
you walk in.
They were all killed by Teddy Roosevelt?
All killed by Teddy Roosevelt.
The Rough Riders.
The Rough Riders, yeah. And he has a history in Ybor City here, too.
Really?
Oh, he allegedly went through the Hyatt Hotel on his horse.
No way.
Yeah. When they came here, they're getting ready to deploy to Cuba. They staged here in Tampa.
Well, this was before automobiles were prevalent because, the Ford Motor Company hadn't been started yet.
Well, the automobile, the reciprocal engine wasn't invented until like 1903, 1904, And this is during the Spanish-American War, which is...
So a horse isn't really something that is out of the possibility of walking. Well, he walked into a hotel.
He walked in a hotel with his horse. He's an asshole. Like me. Like when I go to a local bar, the place that Sean and I hang out, I tell everybody I don't want everyone to think I'm an asshole. I want them to fucking know I'm an asshole. And I am. They tell me I live up to my expectations. So
I haven't seen it yet.
But I've worked with...
I have.
I've worked with...
Got good whiskey, though.
Yeah, true that. You're buying the next one, too. I've worked with Mike Tyson. I've worked with Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan.
Oh, Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah, remember I snapped you the photo?
Oh, shit.
Gary is great. He loves veterans. He has a band. It's called the Lieutenant Dan Band.
Oh, talking about your band. We got to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about my... Definitely got to promote my band.
Does he really have a band called the Lieutenant Dan Band?
He actually has a band called the Lieutenant Dan Band.
Oh, him, right? Not you.
No, him, Lieutenant Dan.
He's a bass player. He plays the bass, and he puts on this big show. And he comes over and he schmoozes with veterans, and he signs autographs, and very cordial guy.
He does have both of his legs, just so everybody.
Yeah, he does. They did all that on green screen, which means we got to get back to talking about some of the problems I had making the film.
Yeah.
And so. I worked with Dan, Lieutenant Dan. God, will you bring me some fucking coffee?
Coffee. How about here you go?
Yeah, no, that's going to put me to sleep.
It's got caffeine in it.
Yeah, I need that. Anyhow,
Lieutenant Dan.
He turned around and hosted Veterans Day one time, and I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs as a audiovisual production specialist, and I ended up, doing an interview with him once before, and then I spent about half an hour with him alone, doing interviews, this and that. Another one that I interviewed and I worked with and I spent 20 minutes alone with was John Glenn.
Who's John Glenn?
John Glenn is the first American to orbit the Earth.
Oh, shit. Astronaut.
Yeah, astronaut. And I spent 20 minutes alone with him because I was doing a live TV interview with him, and he was cordial enough to sign a newspaper for me it says, John Glenn orbits the Earth 7 times and returns, And he goes, where'd you get this? I said, Air and Space Museum 20 minutes ago. It's a repro, and he signed it to Steve, best wishes, John Glenn. And it's one of my most prized things. One thing that I'm working with, I'm doing right now is I'm reading a book about a friend I spent 4 days in a hotel getting drunk with. Imagine that.
That's always a good time.
His name was Lloyd Booker, and there was an incident. And I know you guys don't know about this. There was an incident back in the 60s called the Pueblo incident. What happened was that he went by Pete. He called Pete Booker. Pete was the commander of a Navy frigate that he was ordered to. He was a submariner, a bubblehead, and he ended up getting orders, as they call them, surface, to be able to get you out of the submarine service, meaning kind of like any of your career. But it turned out that the CIA took a Navy frigate called the Pueblo, and they outfitted it with spy technology. And he was in international waters off the coast of Korea, and they got taken, and they was held prisoner for a long time. And it tortured the shit out of him. And he said to me, Steve, you're the first person I ever talked about this on camera, And I did a documentary on that for the National Catholic News when I was working the Reagan White House. And then, Pete and I became good friends. And I just now got a copy of his book because I didn't know there was one. And I saw it on eBay because I was starting to do some research because I'm looking at a copy of a painting he gave me and signed. I think you've seen that.
Yeah.
And you look at me and said, who the hell is that? But, he's one of the more notable people. So I've worked with a lot of people that I highly admire. And a lot of these Medal of Honor recipients, they're all just fantastic people, and they're all very humble. And they say that,
and they got some balls, man.
Well, it's just the idea that you do what you have to do and you have to do it.
With that, because it's like courage, essentially. They don't even think about their own life before they go and save lives.
It's just the idea that and I've had this situation when I was a police officer. I worked my way through college as a police officer. And
Steve, how old are you again?
Longer than you'll ever probably be.
So Steve is 93 years old.
I'm 70. I'm 70. I'll be 71 in September.
It's a hell of a fucking life to live all the way through 70. I mean, you still got, like 2 years to live?
Yeah. Wow. Someone said to me yesterday, you've led a hell of a life. And I say, it ain't over yet. Yeah. It ain't over yet.
A lot of LSD still to go.
Hey, but isn't it crazy that they don't have a whole 2 or 3 months for our military vets? I mean, we should.
It's
really,
3 days,
yeah.
right? Veterans Day, Memorial Day,
and 4th of July, which is the Independence Day. Really, it's Labor Day, but I mean, we should have a whole 2 months.
I saw a thing the other day, and it kind of
that.
touched me on Facebook, and not being an asshole, but I am. I admitted it. That they have a thing that says Veterans Day, 1 day for their Memorial Day, 1 day for them, but an entire month for Gay Pride.
Yeah,
that disturbs me, and it's true.
It's
true.
I do
that's the
not
part,
disagree.
man. I'm just like, look, man, it's fine if everybody has a day. There's one Cinco de Mayo. There's there's 1 day for everything, but we don't need a whole fucking month of this bullshit being shoved down our throats. I'd rather support the troops that give us the freedom every single day to live in this country, free to be able to do whatever you want, including be prideful.
Well, it's just not just Pride thing. You've got your Black History Month, your Asian Month. You've got all that. Where's the White Guys Month? And what it comes down to, though, all that kind of stuff is what causes the division among people. Why are we celebrating all these different cultures and all this other kind of stuff whenever we're all Americans?
Yeah. You know what? Morgan Freeman said it best. He was like, I don't like Black History Month. Why do we have to combine our entire history to just 1 month? The way you get rid of racism is you stop talking about it, because there is no racism. I mean, like you said earlier, in the 1920s, bro, it was fucking racist as shit. Now, everybody has free opportunity.
And like I said, it's the type of things that divide us, and it's all generated by the media.
Yeah.
It's like you can't watch a movie right now without some gay overtone in it.
Yeah.
They're shoving that shit down your throat. I don't care. Love is whoever, whatever the case may be. But and I'm not anti-gay. It's just the idea. I'm anti the way they promote all this shit and shove it down our throats, like you said, Sean.
Yeah. And then when we get back, I'm curious to see what instrument Steve plays and what the name of his band is and where they play and what they play. We're back with Steve Hollingshead, who has a awesome film, Ybor City Underworld: A History, and it's on Amazon Prime. And we've been listening to the stories of Tampa Bay and the history of how the underground tunnels, the prostitution, murder for hire, everything that's been going on with the mob. But now we're going to take it a little bit refresher side, and we're going to be like, Steve, what the fuck do you play on the instrument?
I take my drum and beat it.
Beat it. What's the name of the band?
The band is called Pieces of Eight.
And where do you usually play at?
Well, basically, anybody will hire us. You know, I'm a whore with an instrument. I'll do anything I want. You know,
But you've played at Skippers.
We actually just got pinged to possibly play again in mid-July. We played at Skippers. We played at a couple of HOA events. We are an 8-piece band.
Okay.
We're a Chicago and Tower of Power tribute band.
Can you describe to our audience what an 8-piece band is?
An 8-piece band is we have 8 people in the band. We have a horn section. We're a horn band.
Okay.
It's something you don't find that much anymore. And you mention horn bands now, everybody says, "Oh, the Black Honkies." You know.
I was going to say ska.
Yeah. But no, we play Chicago, which is a very popular band. They were going like 50 years, and also Tower of Power, which they've been going over 50 years, and they're still popular. And there's actually a Russian Chicago tribute band touring the country that's very, very popular. And so I have a trombone, I have a tenor sax. Well, a guy tenor.
I bet
alto.
you do.
Tender sack.
Sorry, Steve.
And you played a skin flute, I think. You know?
Wow.
You opened yourself up for that, Sean. Anyhow,
No, he opened it.
okay, whatever.
Yeah, he likes to bully you.
All right.
Yeah, he does.
So fuck both of you. Okay? So anyhow, no, we have a saxophone, all ranges of saxophone that one guy plays. We have trombone, we have a trumpet, we have a rhythm section, lead guitar, bass guitar, keyboard.
Are you a cover band, or are you guys playing your own original
We're a
scores?
cover band, yeah.
So what the fuck can you play with all that shit?
We have got 3 hours worth of material, believe me, easily.
What's the number one song? Journey?
There is no number one song. They're all popular.
Don't stop believing.
Oh my God.
I'm going to throw something out there. At any rate, I've got a fantastic band.
Or is that ahead of your generation?
Wow. Yeah.
Anyhow, look, this is empty. I'll tell you. And I need the water. Anyhow, I've got a very the way I started the band was that I used to play band on weekends when I was in the Army overseas in Panama, and I'd play in bands on the weekend, make money, wherever guys out there chasing whores, whatever the case may be, spending their money. And I'm making money, got a little loan shark business on the side, you know. So, you know, I'm an asshole. And and then all through college, I played with a jazz band and all that. And between the Army and college, I played with a couple bands. And then all of a sudden, after I graduated from college, I just said, I've had enough, you know, and I ended up actually selling my kit for rent money because
You said your kit?
Yeah, my drum kit.
Oh, okay.
I ended
I
up
said kidney. I was like,
No,
damn.
well, yeah, I got that one too. Gone,
got
you
that.
know. I can show you the scar.
I think you could do that in Panama.
And so anyhow, I did it the hard way, and got my degree in film. And I haven't probably picked up a drumstick for about 40-some years. And then one day I'm watching television and Chicago came out, and I said, God, I love that music. I'd love to play that kind of music again because I'm retired now. I got the bug, you know. And so I started pinging some people and trying to make some contact. And over a period of about 2 years, developed a band. And it took me about that long time to get the right people. Because the one thing about music is that you've got these people who want to start. They don't want to do startups. They want something immediately. I want a band that's already operating and making money and this and that, and you know, and everybody thinks they're going to be a star. It took me a long time, and all these guys, you know, read charts, and I got Andrew Rosenthal, who is a new father, by the way. Congratulations to Andrew. That's a beautiful young son.
Nice.
he is a fantastic trombone player. I think the guy has got a weird sense of humor. I think the guy is like borderline genius, if not a genius.
That's why he's got
comes up. I mean, he comes up with something like that. Trying to get his wife pregnant, and he says, "I said, hey, you just haven't got enough white Mark Spitz there." And he goes, "What about Mark Swallows?" I mean, just boom like that, right off the top of his
Quick
head.
as a whip.
Quick as a whip. Very talented. And Dave Fredericks, who is a very talented trumpet player, and he actually did the drone work for my film.
You didn't hire us?
No.
Just kidding.
Nice try, though. He did it for free.
Oh.
He did it for free. And so anyhow, Dave Fredericks, and then I got Charlie. God, I'm having a mental meltdown. I'll tell you, I can't even think.
Make sure
Charlie Phillips playing saxophone, and he also does vocals. And he plays soprano sax, tenor sax, alto sax, baritone sax, and he sings. And this guy is they're all phenomenal. They're all phenomenal musicians. I've got Jay Meter on bass, who's a very talented bass player. I've got, let's see, I got Tim Mitchell, who's a park ranger out at Honeymoon Lake. Okay. And we played a gig there last year, and he plays keyboard. I play drums, of course, and I've got Gene Coherd. I have to think. I have Gene Coherd playing, very talented guitar player, and I've got J.C. Grigg playing, doing vocal, and the guy has got a phenomenal range, and that is just so hard.
Do you guys have a YouTube channel that the audience can find you on?
Yeah, we are on. We have a website, www.pieces8tampa.com, and we have videos on YouTube. And if you look PO8 Tampa on YouTube, you'll see some of our work also. That we have a concert. We actually went and made a 1-hour video at a studio in St. Petersburg. And we used that for promotional, and then I've done cuts off of that and made a promotional video, an 8-minute promotional video that we used to advertise this. But we are a Chicago tribute band, and we play Tower of Power, which is stuff. The last gig that we played in, we got a standing ovation, and we were sold out of a crowd of 300.
Oh, wow.
And it was great. It was just phenomenal. And just like Charlie looks at me and says...
Do they charge admission fees, and then you collect a certain percentage?
No, the HOA... the HOA turns around and gets these people. I don't know if they have to pay to come in or whatever the case may be. That's on the HOA in that particular case. But we have a set fee that we charge for gigs, okay. And then we get paid that amount of money.
We had a magician on here. I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I think it was last week. And what he does is he rents an auditorium and he sells tickets, and he collects the majority. Holy shit, that was sleight of hand. Holy shit.
I don't want to hear about some fucking magician. I want to talk about my
No. Well, this is what I'm saying. The reason I'm saying it is because he rents an auditorium and he sells the tickets at whatever price he wants, and then he collects all the admission, and then all he has to do is pay for the rent for the auditorium. Have you guys thought about doing something like that?
That's too costly, I think.
Costly?
Yeah. You got to.
Unless you don't think you're going to sell out.
Well, there's a lot of different ways to get gigs, and we've been promoting all these different places, just about every club that have us. One of the things that we have, one of the problems we have is that we're such a large band, being 8 of us.
Getting everybody on the same schedule.
Well, getting everybody paid.
I mean, no, that's the point. The point is that if you're going to try to get a place to play, to get a gig, you have to have enough space for us to set up. And a lot of these places you walk in and go, oh, so that's the stage.
So Skippers ain't that big, though.
Well, Skippers is enough. I mean, we played Skippers once, and that was good. Their stage is big enough to have us. We're a little cramped, but we make it work.
What's that place off of Nebraska and Bears that's just south? Southern Grounds. They got a pretty big fucking stage there.
Not familiar with it.
It's right next to Skippers, man.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll check it out. Well, I was drunk when I went to Skippers. It's like some of the art I do. I was drunk when I was doing that, too, and some of the abstract things.
Yeah?
He's a painter also.
Yeah, you do art, and you turn around, you look at it, and go, that's fucked up. It's abstract.
He's actually better than average.
Now I'm going to have to write him a check. But at any rate, no, we We have a great band, and we're available for hire. So anybody that has an event, and we're doing some charity events and that type of stuff too, come and take a look at us. And we're at our email is the pieces of 8 hornband@gmail.com.
The Pieces of 8.
Pieces of 8, not the.
Okay.
It's pieces of 8 hornband@gmail. And
You gotta work on shortening that, man.
well, the reason I came up with the idea is one of my sleepless nights and insomnia, like last night, that, I thought, well, let's see what I'm going to name this band. Well, let's see, we got 8 pieces. I went, pieces of 8, because it comes from the Spanish doubloon, And if you've ever read Treasure Island, Long John Silver and the parrots going, pieces of 8, pieces of 8, Pieces of 8 is actually a piece of silver that they would take, and it's a denomination of a Spanish doubloon where they would take it, and it was called pieces of 8, and you could cut it up into 8 little different pieces and make pocket chain out of it, or save it just a little bit where you're getting a little bit of silver here, and it keeps going on and on and on and on, and it adds up. And that's where the term pieces of 8 came from. So that's what came to mind. And then I found out that there's another band, I think it's in Cleveland or someplace like that, it's also a horn band, and they're called Pieces of 8. And so, well, we don't want to violate copyrights, so Pieces of 8 Tampa. And we're all local musicians, and we all read music, and, very talented people. And the thing of it is, these guys are dedicated. We practice every Thursday night. And, and
where at?
We have a plug-and-play place called Masterpiece Studios. Owned and ran by Eddie Ray Meyer. And
can people just visit you while you're doing that?
We don't allow people coming in whenever we're practicing.
Gotcha.
We go in there, and it's a closed-door rehearsal. We practice, and we play for 3 hours. And we put a song list out that what we're going to play the week before, so everybody knows their charts are in order. They know what we're going to play, and we can go boom, 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 boom. We have a problem area that we want to improve on, and we work for professionals. These guys are all professional level musicians. I can't say enough about these guys. They are just so fantastic. They always show up on time. They're always enthusiastic about it. Trouble of it is when you get yourself a lag in gigs like now when it's hot outside. Excuse me. And you can't do outdoor concerts. You have that lag. And so you don't have something to look forward to, and you kind of lose your enthusiasm, and that's why we try to keep things going, keep things driving, introducing new material. And believe me, with these guys, Chicago playing for 50 years and Tower of Power playing for 50 years, there are a lot of songs out there.
So there's 8 people that have to coordinate on the same songs for whatever your set may be. So everybody has a sheet in front of them that has the notes, or it's just memorized and that's it.
iPad.
But
it has the music in front of them, and then they follow the music. And I memorize everything. I grew up with this stuff, so I know every song by heart, and I listen to it, and I know every lick by heart. And so, in the beginning of it, and it is amazing, I go up there and I give the click, I give the rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, everything comes in concert, and it's just amazing. Drummer. It's just amazing every time I hear it.
It's melancholical.
It's fun. It is fun. It is fun. And then every once in a while, like we vamp and we, and go in and make a few changes here and there. And
do you guys have any original scores? Or
no, we don't do originals. Everything.
Have you guys tried?
Oh, what we do is we turn around and we have a lot of different songs that are charted, and then we pay somebody, or Charlie does. We have a treasury now, so we pay for our treasury. That Charlie Phillips, our sax player and vocal, he's been very instrumental in getting some of the stuff transcribed for us. For an 8-piece band, because you look at Tower Power, those guys got a huge, 3 saxophones, 2 trumpets, and they're a huge band, and their sound, sounds like it too, and they're phenomenal. There's 8 of us, and like Chicago, we've only got 3 horn pieces, and we transcribe this, and after playing it for 3 years, 2 or 3 years, it all becomes muscle memory.
Yeah,
that's together. Yeah,
it's out there in your head and it's embedded, and it's
one of your favorite things to do, Steve. It looks like, right?
Whatever gave you that idea?
The way you
Little
talk
peak with
about
enthusiasm.
yeah, that was. I mean,
I mean, it's just like film.
Yeah.
It's just like film. You know, you have a project that you are enthused with, and you just go at it, balls to the walls. You know, and it's just like when I paint or when I get working on editing a film or shooting a film, and you get up there and you just think this is so great, and you get so consumed by it that you. It's just like when I start editing, I started like with my cup of coffee at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then next thing you know, it's 1
a.m.
And then you turn around, it's just like painting, and then you go up the next morning and you look what you fucked up, and then you turn around and unfuck it, you know, and spending half the day doing that.
Man, honestly, Steve, it's been a privilege to have you on here. I just want to give you the last 2 minutes to basically tell the audience whatever you want, man. Because
Final words.
You got so much. You got band, history. You know, your military background. You just got an abundance. I mean, obviously, we're gonna have you on the show again, but just
celebrities you've met, all that stuff.
Yeah, just to tell the audience whatever you want, man, for these last couple minutes.
Buy my video.
money.
Yeah. This is like when I got my pilot's license. They say, "What makes the airplane fly?" Money. That's it. Yeah. Amazon Prime. I've got 6 videos. One of them is, of course, Ybor City Underworld, a history. I'm glad you didn't say Ybor City Underwear. I thought you were. We have a documentary I did called Haley's Voice. It's about teen suicide. It's a 12-minute video, and it's
about one of our neighbors.
Yeah, about a friend of ours who turned around. Their daughter took her own life at a very young age, and it was made pro bono to be able to bring awareness. And highly recommend that you watch that. I have one called Our Changing Battlefield, a history of the Gettysburg Battlefield. And I lived in Gettysburg for 5 years and did a lot of Civil War videos. I have 2 or 3, one, the Stars and Bars of Gettysburg. I have the history of OSS. The history of OSS, the history of the beginning of the predecessor of the Special Forces and the CIA. And the next time I come on, we'll talk maybe a little bit about hypnosis.
And maybe your time as a Green Beret?
Queen Beret. No, we're not going to talk about that. Really, I don't tell war stories.
Yeah.
You know the difference between a war story and a fairy tale. Fairy tale starts out, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, once upon a time, and the war story is no shit, Sarge, there I was.
What the fuck?
And that's how we're going to leave it, because Steve is the mystery man.
Like, subscribe, comment, turn those notifications on.